session on addressing Shia misconceptions. I think originally the plan was to have a one-off show, and you can see how complicated topic areas are and how lengthy specific objections are, that we've now got into episode number 6. Inshallah, for the time being, our thoughts are this will probably wrap up the misconceptions. We've tried to go over the key ones over the last few weeks. So inshallah ta'ala, if anybody is looking, for example, if we want to show anyone videos about typical misconceptions and answers, we're quite confident that once we complete these 6 parts, you will see that we've effectively addressed the key objections that are bandied about. Obviously, objections are thrown all the time and nonsense narrations from our critics. We can't address each and everything, but we will, inshallah ta'ala. Our plan is to have dedicated programs which deal with specific topics, such as, for example, Muawiyah, issues of Imam. Those sort of topics we will focus specifically on. In terms of who's here today, if I could introduce familiar names, the brothers that have been with us before. We've got Brother Daniel. We have Sayyid Ali. Sayyid Ali, where are you? We've got, I don't know where Sayyid Ali's gone. Is he?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. We've got Sayyid Ali. Do answer when I speak, you know.
Okay, please forgive me.
Yes, exactly. I forgive you for the time being. Otherwise, there'd be a Majusi punishment for you.
Yes, we'll start dancing around fire.
Exactly. Right, okay. And then we've got Brother Ryan. Brother Ryan, you there? There he is. And we also have a new addition to the team, Brother Ahmed. Are you there?
Hello, yes I am. Hello everyone, hello audience.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thank you for joining us. I was just giving us a quick intro of, Brother Ahmed, you're here for the first time that you've joined, and just to say that we have previously had 5 programs which just address the common misconceptions of the Shia. This is the 6th, and inshallah ta'ala, for the time being, will be the final one. From now on, the idea will be to have dedicated programs on specific, lengthy objection areas. Before we kick off in terms of addressing what should be the last 5 or 6 key objections which are bandied about, I'm very, very pleased to bring Brother Ahmed onto the show today. He is our newest member of the team. For security reasons, his face will not appear because obviously wherever he operates, for his own protection, we cannot disclose that. Brother Ryan's left, but I'm sure we'll bring him back a bit later on. For the time being, Brother Ahmed, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background because the interesting thing is for us is obviously you come from a non-Shia background, and if you could, brother, just tell us a little bit about your non-Shia background, and then I can ask specific questions. Brother Ryan, there's too much interference. Can you, Brother Ahmed, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Brother, if you could tell us a little bit, obviously you've, alhamdulillah, we're very thankful that you've joined the team. Inshallah ta'ala, you'll be working on specific projects, specific issues for us, for the channel. But really, we want to get to know you today so the viewers know exactly who, alhamdulillah, now we're bringing the real heavyweights on. And we're really proud and very, very grateful for you joining us. Brother Ahmed, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Obviously, you're from a non-Shia background. What is your background? If you tell the viewers what background you come from.
Well, first of all, assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm glad to be here talking to you guys and to the audience. So, I was born into a Salafi, like relatively Wahhabi-ish household. My uncle was like a prominent Wahhabi scholar in his country. Well, he's dead now, so he's no longer a prominent scholar, I guess. And I started to like, I guess, slowly convert to Shiism around like, I guess I was I was like 18 to 19 years old when I started converting. 18, let's say. And I converted to Shiism around 2012. I remember it was Ramadan 2012. And yeah, the rest is history, I guess.
Brother Ahmed, in terms of, you said that you came from a Salafi background. I mean, it was very practicing in the sense you was quite firm in your Salafi beliefs up until you was 18, you're saying.
Yeah, I was 100% sure that my Salafi path was the true path. Like, I guess the main reason I converted the first place is because I was wondering why the hell would anyone be a Shi'i?
Right.
So then I ended up becoming one. So like, yeah, I was 100% certain that Salafism is the true path.
Okay. Brother, when you say that Salafism was the true path, I mean, you because you was born into that sort of family, when was your first kind of I mean, in terms of your understanding of Shiism as a Salafi, what was it? What sort of things was it a hatred of Shiism? Was it what was your attitude towards Shias before you even did any research? As a Salafi, what did you understand Shias were?
Well, even though I was a Salafi and the average Salafi is hateful towards Shi'is, but like in my country, since the majority are Salafis, there are almost no Ash'aris and no other kinds of Sunni beliefs. Like, I guess I was a moderate Salafi. I didn't hate the Shi'is, even though I wondered why would they not be Salafis. But like, I didn't hate any of them. I was fine. Like, I had a few Shi'i friends and I didn't hate them.
Right. And in terms of did you have a lot? So when you say you had Shia friends, so you was exposed to like Shias from a young age, or what? What was the position coming into contact with Shias?
Well, yeah, I had contact with Shias like ever since I was a child, but unfortunately, like in my part of the world, Shias don't have as much freedom of speech as you guys in the West have. So mostly they didn't tell me anything about their religion. And like, honestly, as a very early child, like under the age of 10, my father told me that Shi'is are not Muslims.
Right.
And I believed it. Like I like literally mistook between Shi'is and Sikhs. And I thought they were the same thing. Then like around the age of 10, I realized like, oh wow, they're actually a branch of Islam. What an interesting thing to find out. Yeah, I wasn't exposed at all until I was like a middle teenager around the age of 13, 14, 15.
Right.
That's when
So
I
up until that point, Brother Ahmed, the general view was, although you was quite open-minded, certainly what your father taught you was that Shias are non-Muslim.
Sorry, didn't hear the question?
I was saying, brother, I mean, I would say, I know you said you was very open-minded, but certainly what had been embedded in your mind as a child from what your father told you was that the Shia are not Muslims. Correct? That was what you was being taught.
Well, that's what I was taught, but like the only reason I believed it at that point was because I thought that like they are literally a separate religion that doesn't like follow Quran or anything, because like I saw pictures of like Sikhs, and for some reason I thought that those were the Shias.
Right.
But yeah, like as soon as I grew up a little, around the age of like 13, let's say, I realized that yeah, the Shias are Muslims. Like I saw Shias praying in the prayer room in my school. I was like, oh, like they're praying with us. What the hell? So yeah.
Right. Okay. And when yourself, obviously, because you said you was firm in your Salafism, when did you actually start looking into Shias? And when did it come to you say, I need to look at what the Shias believe? Did you started your research? When did that happen?
Well, like 1 year in my, like I guess in my final year in high school, if I may say, yeah, in my final year in high school, like I had a lot of reasons. One of them is that I was like, I always knew that I need to read more and know more, but like what triggered my, I guess, research journey and like slow march towards Shiism is that my brother, like let's say, he converted to Shiism, So like I was wondering why the hell would anyone do that? Like to me, like the way I thought of it is that the Shi'is are only Shi'is because they were born Shi'is. Like I didn't know that people actually convert to Shi'ism. I found it weird. So I thought, well, let me just kickstart research campaigns, like see what's going on. And like, let's just say it didn't really take long. Like all it took was like 8 months and I was already like the most hardline Shi'i I know. Because like, yani, there wasn't much arguments that are persuasive on the Sunni side. Yani, it is the Sunni books that are making Sunnis convert to Shi'ism, not the Shi'i books. Like their hadiths, including the Ghadeer hadith and the 12 Imams, the 12 Khalifas hadiths, and many others like the Kisa hadith. Whereas you don't see Sunni hadiths really confirming the Sunni theories which they believe in, like let's say their own version of Khilafah. It is weakened by their own hadiths. So that was about it. Like all it took me is like 8 months, and that was it.
So, brother, which were for you? What were the key topics, though? When you say you did research, for you, what were the key? Obviously, we know the difference. We've been discussing those between Sunni and Shia. There must be something when you did your research and thought, "Wow, this is a key topic here, and the Shia position makes sense." Was there something, for example, which one was the key one for you that made you think, "Wow, the Shia's position that makes more sense than the Sunni position"?
Well, normally, like what I now believe is that since the key difference between us is Imama versus Khilafah, I believe that should be everyone's starting point.
Right.
Because that's what divided us to begin with. But that was not my starting point.
Okay. So what was
my
your starting point?
Was mainly like two issues. First of all, Adalat al-Sahaba, like the idea that all of the Sahaba were nice people who were like best friends and they didn't slaughter each other and they didn't rape each other's wives and they didn't do anything crazy in that context.
Yep.
So like when I found out that the Sahaba actually killed each other multiple times on multiple occasions and did takfir on each other and cursed each other, that was like very shocking for me. And I also found like certain Sahabas very hard to respect, like especially Muawiyah. Honestly, like I gave up on that guy even as a Sunni before I converted to Shiism. And then like the bigger issue, the thing that really, I guess, shocked me was Ibn Taymiyyah. You know, in my part of the world, that guy is like the undisputed Imam of Islam. Like,
yeah.
He runs the place in my neighborhood, I guess. So, like, the more I would read into Minhaj al-Sunnah, the more I would get shocked. This guy must be one of two things. One, he could be a huge liar, total dajjal. Or two, he could be hearing false information and not confirming it. To begin with, like for example, he said that Shi'is, like I remember the exact words, he said that Shi'a لا يشهدون جمعة ولا جماعة. We don't pray Jum'ah prayers and we don't pray Jama'ah, like in group prayer. Well, like I have seen as a Sunni with my own eyes, the Shi'is are praying Jum'ah prayer and Jama'ah in a group. So the hell is this guy saying? And it had been happening like always. It's not that we invented it recently. We're always doing it. Another major issue, he says that before every Maghrib prayer, we would never pray like Dhuhr or Asr, and we would just go to the Sirdab where Imam al-Mahdi Ajalallah Farajah would be hiding, and we would put dates and stuff like outside to lure him into coming out and like call for him, hey Imam, come to us. And he wouldn't come, so we would pray Dhuhr and Asr like late because he was refusing to be our Imam. Like as a Sunni, I believe that. But like now I find out that he isn't even in a basement. There isn't even one Shi'i source about him being in a basement. He's dwelling earth. He's going wherever he needs or wants to be at certain times. So like many, many lies on that context that made me think, if this guy is a big boss of my religion, then what's up with the smaller guys? يعني, and that really that weakened the position of Sunnism in my eyes. And then again, when the Prophet says there will be 12 imams or khulafa or nuqaba after him, we are the only religion that has 12 umara or nuqaba. So it has to be us. And this hadith is true in all, according to all of their scholars. It's in Bukhari, it's in Muslim, and everyone agrees on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, these were the two things that in the end made me convert.
But brother, obviously you mentioned obviously the issue of the Sahaba, the Adala of the Sahaba. Obviously, when you've got that foundation that's shaken, isn't it? Because obviously traditional Sunnism is very much based on respect for the Sahaba, revering them as personalities and believing in their justice. That would have shaken you, obviously, when you read about their, historical faux pas. I can't really think of better wording at the moment. But brother, what about obviously because the three khulafa, they have a very obviously more senior type of status. When you read up upon them, did that shake you more when you read about some of their conduct?
Well, obviously, I was very shaken, and not only over the three. Yeah, the three shocked me, but the one who shocked me the most, to be honest, was Khalid bin Walid.
Right.
Like as a child, that guy was my favorite Sahabi. Like I idolized him as a child.
Right.
So like when I read up about the kinds of things he used to do, like the disgusting person he was, the people he murdered, including Malik ibn Nuwayra radiallahu anhu, the companion of the Prophet, and how he raped his wife after killing him later the same night. Now they are defending Khalid by saying, no, Malik ibn Nuwayra is a murtad. But the thing is, when Umar found out that he killed him, he said something along the lines of, have you killed a Muslim man? Like, how could you kill a Muslim man? And Abu Bakr, when he heard it, he didn't defend Khalid by saying, no, he isn't a Muslim. No, he actually said, I don't want to take down a sword which God have carried against his enemies or something like that. So like both Abu Bakr and Umar appeared to not believe that Malik radiallahu anhu was an infidel. So that was shocking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the end, when a Sunni sees this, he's like at a crossroads. Like he either believes that all of the Sahaba are good and that they are the best people after the Prophets, in which case they will imitate them, and that's how ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Boko Haram and Taliban are founded. Or they will say, screw these guys, they are terrorists, they are murderers, they are rapists, I don't want them in my life. In which case, he will unfortunately leave Islam, or hopefully he'll come to us, which I did. And I've been through that conflict.
Honestly, brother, it's really interesting what you've just said. Because in the group at the moment, even today, we've got two brothers who also come from Christian to Sunni backgrounds to Shi'i background, and they, but we've been speaking to them. I mean, they can contribute to the same point. They themselves have said the same thing. That there are points when Sunnism just had such a vacuum for them that they thought about leaving Islam. Brother Daniel, can you contribute? There's something you said the other day to me, didn't you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's exactly what I felt like. The more I learned about Sunnism, like I came into it like from a convert perspective. Like Brother Ahmed probably had larger amount of knowledge, obviously, than I had, because when you come as a convert, you're just spoon-fed the beautiful things. Like, for example, the first hadith book I had for years was Riyadh al-Salihin. Riyadh al-Salihin is a collection of beautiful, nice hadith about ethics, morals. Nobody will object that. But when I read the real stuff, I just the same issues like Brother Ahmed. And actually, I also had the issue with Khalid ibn Walid. I was reading a biography that is available also on the internet about Khalid. And first of all, I started to get more interested in Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam by this biography, because he was quickly mentioned. I would say that, okay, he's the man, he's the supreme warrior. And I said, okay, Khalid is a terrorist. What the hell? And yeah, just the same like Brother Ahmed. Absolutely. And I know many brothers who had also the same thoughts, the same objections.
Ryan, did you have any sort of experience like that?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Savage. No, I never had any doubts about Islam once I came to it. The thing for me is, when I was studying Islam, I looked heavily into a hadith of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and that's why I became a Qurani in the first place. And it's actually why a lot of Sunnis end up becoming Quranis, because they read the hadith books. It's vile. They're vile, disgusting content within those books. It is completely repulsive and not in line with one's fitrah. And you're right. It's when it's cognitive dissonance, or either you think all these people are just, and you have this opinion that the Sahaba are all just, right? And because you don't know about what they do, right? Or you know what they do and you think they're all just, which would then lead you to think that their actions are just, such as, for example, it doesn't matter if I forget the Sahabi's name we just mentioned, the one that was murdered by Khalid ibn
Malik.
Walid.
Malik bin Nuwaira.
Yeah, that's it. The murder, even if he was a murtad, why is his wife getting raped? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
Totally.
And they cooked his head on the fire.
They cooked his
no,
head.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, some narrations say that.
Even
Yeah.
ISIS could never think of this.
Yeah, and it's absurd. Like, people seem to think that, and this is a very Umari mentality where it's all about power. You have to gain power and possession of the land, and whatever it takes to get there, that's it. Because you need to protect the Muslims. Right? It's a very tribal mentality, and you can tell that that's come from the hypocrites of the Quraysh, where they would have this mentality. So they'll do whatever it took just to maintain the tribalism, right? So yeah, this was always a disgusting ideology to me. So when I studied Sunni Islam, it was more so, and I started practicing it, it was more so just to fit in with other people. It wasn't ever because I thought it was the haqq or anything like that. It was always just a repulsive ideology to me, because it's the same thing. And one more thing, when people talk about, when Sunnis say, oh, ISIS aren't Sunni, they'll say they're Khawarij or something like that. Yet ISIS identifies being Sunni. They identify with the same caliphs. You know, it's nonsensical. They propagate the same books, so that's absolute nonsense. ISIS are 100% Sunni. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Ryan. Ahmed, I was gonna. Do you want to add any other point to the topic on that point?
Yeah, well, sorry to interrupt, but just to clarify, the guys in their media and in their schools, they teach the books of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. So it's not that they're following a strange branch of Sunnism which they founded. No, they're following Wahhabi Salafism, and they preach it. So, yep, they are as Sunni as Sunnism gets. I believe the guys at ISIS are the strongest application of true Wahhabism. I believe if Ibn Abdul Wahhab was alive, he'd probably join ISIS by now. Or maybe he'll be too cowardly, but if he's brave enough, he will join ISIS.
He would have been the Muhammad
new
Abu
caliph.
Bakr.
Yeah, the new caliph. You know what? Even the former Imam of Mecca, this black Imam, Kalbani was his name. Yeah, he admitted that we, the Saudi Wahhabis and ISIS, we have the same manhaj. There's almost no difference. And so, yeah, repulsive. Totally repulsive. And
one more thing on Brother Ahmed's point about how the first thing was Adal as-Sahaba, and it's a good start for Sunnis because it really rocks their foundations. You know, one, the Adal as-Sahaba, and also the concept of Quran and Sunnah, right? That's obviously has a basis from the Hadith in Al-Muwatta by Malik ibn Anas, but it doesn't really have a strong enough fundamental basis. Like obviously the hadith Aqlain that we have in Sahih Muslim, I think, says essentially Kitabullah and Ahl Bayt from memory. So it's just Sunnis just get lied to all the time. It's ridiculous. And we have scholars that also can spread nonsense as well, arguably. But at the same time, it's the whole fundamental of the religion isn't being lied about. You know what I mean? So it's just absurd. I'd say the most important thing when looking at the differences would be Tawheed, though. Sunniism doesn't have Tawheed. They don't get it. They have nothing that actually concrete does justice to Tawheed like our school of thought does. Then you can look at the other concepts that come after it, because at the end of the day, the whole religion, the whole ideology, the whole concept of this is for God. And if you can't get that right, then I don't know why you're doing it. I had a sister, she seems to be a Somalian sister. She's joined some Shia groups lately on Facebook, and she started abusing us. And then when I correct her on something, she'll make fun of me for being a white convert, as if I know anything. But I sent her a message, and I was like, what's your madhab and what's your school of theology? And she just said Tawheed. I go, no, I think you need to go study it. Come back to me when you find out what you're talking about, and then you tell me which one you are, and then I'll explain to you why they don't make sense. And then she never got back to me. So
thanks for that, Brother Ahmed. Can I ask a question on specifically, because I think what about the issue of Tawheed for you? Because obviously Tawheed we do have a big difference in our understanding of Tawheed. Did you see that from your research as well? The difference between the Shia concept of Tawheed and that being followed by Salafi school?
Well, honestly, like I was spoon-fed Wahhabi version of Tawheed so hard that like the biggest stigma I had, like my biggest issue with Shiism when I converted was this issue of Tawheed.
Right.
يعني the عدالة الصحابة, I saw it as bullshit. Like as soon as I started reading into it, like as soon as I saw what those guys did, I was like, how could this guy even be good people, let alone role models or anything? Like was the issue of 12 Imams versus the endless chain of Khulafa in Sunnism. That was easy. But like Tawheed, I had issues with it. But then, like as I asked Shi'is into it, like I know many Shi'is, so I just simply asked multiple, I was like, what's up with all this? And you're worshipping that. And they were like, not only is this like not worship, since you're asking them to be your connection to God, and instead of like asking them as separate people who have like power by themselves, but also like this idea of Tawheed never existed in the Sunni world before Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Like even today, if you look at the Egyptians or the Syrians or the Iraqi Sunnis, or like in most of the world, you'll see there are shrines. Like for example, even Mecca and Al-Medina, which were run by Sunnis, the Ashraf, in before the Saudi invasion, they did have shrines to Uthman bin Affan, to everyone. So like even in Syria, there is a shrine to Muawiyah, la'anahullah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like if we are mushrikeen, then like over 2/3 of the Sunni world, they should also be mushrikeen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Quran says وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةِ. So we do نبتغي إليه الوسيلة, and that's it.
What about the other aspect? I mean, Brother Sayyid Ali is going to be doing some shows on Tawheed. I mean, you must have found something of that very unusual, where they, obviously from the Salafi perspective, where God has got physical attributes, such as a hand and a face. And how did you deal with that when you came across that? When you started comparing that to the Shia perspective, did it shake you a bit? You thought, what on earth is this?
Well, honestly, like even like a human with good logic would never view God as the giant man those people think he is. Think about it. If God is really just a huge physical creature who has like borders to his body, then where is he sitting? They say he is bigger than all of the skies and all of the earth. Well, then how is he sitting in the seventh sky? What is he doing there? How does it fit him and he's bigger than it? There are many like scientific, physical impossibilities to these notions. Like even back as a Sunni, I had doubts about this. So like the Shi'i view on God, like the physical attributes and all that, which I agree with the Ash'ari majority Sunni attributes to God, they all would tell you that God is not like us. ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. But like the Sunni side, or the Salafi side to be more specific, which is sadly spreading all over the Sunni world, they say that not only God is a physical being, making them like heretics according to the average Sunni, but also they give him attributes. They give him hands, they give him feet, they give him 2 eyes, they give him ears, a nose, they give him everything. And that's not just a stupid like mentality of the early ones like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Abdul Wahhab later, but no, it's like the mentality of even the modern ones. Like Ibn Uthaymeen, he wrote an entire book on this issue, giving God attributes including laughing and running. He actually believed that God runs. Well, in order to run from point A to point B, you need to be smaller, than point A to point B. Like to run 10 meters, you need to be smaller than like 10 meters, So like if God is running, according to Ibn Uthaymeen, then all I can ask is how small do you think God is? Or like when he comes to earth every Friday, how is he small enough to fit to come to Sama ad-Dunya every Friday? That's stupid, just stupid.
Thank you for that. that more. It's interesting, brother Ahmed, because Sayyid Ali is going to be doing some shows on that. We've done some previous shows on Tawheed, but I tell you, what you've just said is more or less summarized the topic here for us. Don't you think, Sayyid Ali?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a good point, actually. If you do believe God has the ability to run, there must be a starting point and a finishing point, right? So,
it's a very good point.
In itself, they're very, the very basis in the belief in God itself is something which rejects the total intellect. The intellect naturally rejects their concept of God. But inshallah, we just actually made these shows quite recently. But yeah, it's planning to come on at some point, I think this week, I believe.
Okay, brother Ahmed, obviously you're going to be doing some shows for the channel. Do you want to just sort of introduce the viewers what shows you'll be doing in the future?
Yes. Well, since like I have a relatively huge Wahhabi library, a lot of which existed back from my Sunni era, but also like a lot of books which my brother and I bought after that, and also I have connection to a lot of other former Salafis and Wahhabis in many countries across the Arab world. So like what I'm gonna do is expose the Wahhabis as enemies of the Sunnis rather than the leaders of the Sunnis, because what those Wahhabis tell us is that when we attack Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, for example, they say, look, they are attacking all of the Muslim Ummah or all of the Sunnis. Well, in reality, they are a minority of heretics who only managed to spread using petrol money in the modern era. Like 100 years ago, nobody had any idea who those guys are. And now they are spreading across the world by building all of those madrasas which teach terrorism and teach Wahhabism. So what I'm going to do is supply sources, both Wahhabi and Ash'ari and Maturidi and Sunni in general, the different branches, in which we show that Wahhabism is not only contradicting with Sunnism in many, many points, but also the leaders of Wahhabism do takfir on the average Sunni, and they call the average Sunni a mushrik, and they wouldn't have spread if it wasn't for
We've heard that slogan before, haven't we, Hassan Buhari? Mushrik.
Yeah, exactly. They seem to forget, brother Ahmed, because what we notice at the moment, the current approach is we're all one. There's one Sunni Islam. And that basically it's a kind of a cover. They actually do some form of taqiyya, really, brother. Because really Salafism is being presented as the only version of Islam, which is the correct version. But they're presenting it as Sunni Islam. So it's almost like there is no other version of Islam other than Salafi. Do you see what I'm saying? But they don't describe themselves as Salafi. They say, oh, we are Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So it's interesting, brother. Inshallah, from your programming, we will see that there's a distinction between Salafism and Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, in terms of Aqidah, etc. Is that correct? Inshallah, what you'll be focusing on?
Yep, mainly that. Just the differences between the average Sunni and the Wahhabi heretical minority.
Brother, can I ask a question? In terms of you're quite well versed in Ash'ari and Maturidi as well. You've done because obviously you come from a Salafi background. Did you also look at the other sort of that position as well? You know that quite well. The
Well, I
Ash'ari
do
school.
know. Yeah, I do know all about the conflicts between those groups. I mean, I do know about the massacres that happened between the two groups. But like, as I told you, in my country, Ash'aris almost never exist.
Right.
Like Salafism is all over. So I didn't get to study Ash'arism as closely as I studied like Shi'ism or Wahhabism.
Okay. But inshallah, brother, that will be really. We really look forward to those shows. Thank you very much, Jazakallah, brother. We really are looking forward to you now that you're part of the team working on different shows. And brothers, do you want to ask any other questions to Brother Ahmed or
Well,
brothers?
I think I would have many questions, but that would be too much for now. I think, inshallah, because inshallah, we will ask a lot of questions in upcoming shows, inshallah.
Inshallah, we shall learn more from Brother Ahmed in further shows. Thank you very much, Brother Ahmed. We shall, inshallah, look forward to speaking again soon.
Inshallah. Thanks for
Assalamu
hosting
alaikum.
me, you guys, and alaikum assalam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Islam, bro.
Okay. So, gentlemen, we are done with our guest, Brother Ahmed, and I suppose we should go straight into the questions. What time is it? 10:40. Right. Okay. In terms of timing, I thought that was really enlightening. Actually, it was very useful to see a brother, a very learned brother, and we've had conversations.
We apologize for any graphic content.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, there was a rude word said as well, and you know, an emotional brother there.
Just get very passionate when it comes.
Yeah, exactly. There was a bit of passion there, but we do apologize for that. Right. I think we need to start our questions, and this is an interesting one, Brother Sayyid Ali, in particular, because we've often laughed about this one. Do the Shias have a Kaaba in other countries? I'll tell you what this is based on. There's this. These guys bring these pictures of Shia pilgrims circulating like a mock Kaaba, and the usual thing is, I'll look at the Rafida. Not only are they Majusi, they also have a different building that they walk around, and that's their Kaaba. So, Brother Sayyid Ali, I'm gonna if the other brothers can contribute too, that'd be great. But do enlighten us by this point. I know for me it's a particularly comical one, but because it comes up quite a lot, I thought it'd be good to enlighten people on it.
I remember a couple of years back, actually, there were images shared on social media, and they had like this football stadium, and in this football stadium, I believe it was in Iran, and and they had a football stadium, and it was a replica of the Kaaba, right? So these images were circulated around the media, and people were claiming that, oh look, Shias have a Kaaba in Iran, so they don't actually go for Hajj, rather their Hajj is done in Iran. But these are just lies made by the enemies. I mean, I'll share something very quickly on my screen if it's possible. Just give me a second. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is from a newspaper. It's a Saudi newspaper, I believe. And you can see from here, it says, I'll just zoom up slightly more so you can see the screen. And it says, Saudi Arabia ready for all possibilities during Hajj pilgrimage. And as you can see, there's a little image here of Palestinian children, God bless their souls, little girls and boys. And you can see they've made a replica of the Kaaba. And what they're doing is, I mean, the newspaper article says it quite clearly itself. It says, Palestinian children in Gaza walk around a replica of Kaaba stone, which is found in the Holy City, okay? And it goes on to explain why they've done it. So obviously, the idea behind it was so the kids get familiar to the idea of performing Hajj. And obviously Hajj is not wajib on them at this age anyway, I believe. So, yeah, so the idea is just to teach the children, the concept of Hajj and, kind of instilling that into little children. I've got another quick article as well. This was a fatwa given by one of the scholars And in Kenya, actually, a couple of years back, there was a big hoo-ha about it in Africa, I believe. And these African brothers, they did a similar thing. They made a replica of the Kaaba. And the idea was basically was to explain to Hajj pilgrims the correct methodology in performing Hajj. Because let's be frank, in Hajj season, it gets very busy. You might have a person who leads the group in terms of, directing them where they need to go, where they need to stand, etc., etc. But in a crowded group where there's millions of people, it practically becomes impossible trying to explain to people what they need to do here and what they need to do there. So what some people do is, in some countries, they've set up basically replicas of the Kaaba, and the idea behind it is just to educate the people what the correct method is. So no, Shias do not have another Kaaba. We do exactly the same Hajj as you do. And these are just lies made by the enemies. And as you can see, we can very easily circulate all sorts of images and claim, oh, look, Sunnis have a fake Kaaba. They have another Kaaba in Africa, or Kenya, or Palestine, and other surrounding countries. But again, this was a fatwa given by one of the scholars, and he said there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. According to Nuri, I've given a fatwa in Korea after about the people of Kenya who were doing tawaf of a Kaaba model with wearing ihram. My answer to the question was not going to be published. Okay, so he gives an answer and he says basically, look, it's not an issue and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So yeah, just wanted to add that. That's about it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the thing is, it's a learning tool, isn't it? I mean, many people only tend to do the Hajj once in their lifetime. So it can be a daunting experience. It's not like, let's be honest. Okay, in this day and age, if I'm going to learn the procedure for going around the Kaaba, I'll look on a YouTube video. But a lot of brothers and sisters in other parts of the world, like Africa, Palestine, might not have that process. They might not understand it. And the best way to have a learning tool is if you visualize it. If you do something practically, you'll memorize it much more easy. That's a normal part of everyday life. So if a mock Kaaba is created for the purposes of educating oneself, it doesn't mean that you worship that other Kaaba. In the same way, you're not worshipping the Kaaba that you go to when you go on Hajj. It's there merely as a learning tool. I really don't think there's much more to say on that. But brother Daniel, do you want to add anything on that?
Well, I find it very interesting how people are not willing to investigate such news. Like people are too biased, in my opinion. If I hear such news, this is very shocking. And then, as a rational being, even if these are my ideological opponents, I will first check if that's true, because there's so much fake stuff and fake news, like Trump would say it especially on the internet, and people don't investigate. Same thing about the wars. Like, for example, they have pictures in Syria where they're alleged to be in Syria, and then you do some investigation and you see this is from Gaza, this is from Iraq, this is from even the Bhutto bombing in Pakistan, and they will use that as propaganda. And same thing about that, just to give Shias a bad name, and they pretty much play with the ignorance of some of their followers who would not investigate that. So we just see that and parrot it all over social media. Oh, the Shias have different Kaaba. You know what I mean?
The usual nonsense. Yeah. Ryan, do you want to add anything on that?
Should investigate more. That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, exactly that. They just need to investigate more. That just seems to be a common reoccurrence, especially with Umaris, is this they'll see something and then they'll just pound something straight away, like, haha, we got you now. And then that's just what that's what they do. It's absurd. I had a guy who was allegedly a 12er, and he said he became a Wahhabi. He's from Pakistan, a Sayyid. He sent me his family tree and everything. We had a discussion one time because we got into an argument on a Press TV post on Facebook. Anyway, it wasn't actually that bad of a guy. We were talking about cricket and stuff as well, and but he was just very ignorant of a lot of things. And he sent me a video of a mock Kaaba in one of the near one of the shrines. I think it was in Iraq, and it may have been on Imam Ali's birthday or something like that. So that's why it was there, just to show people, like, where he was born or something. I'm not sure what the context was, but it's still not there at the shrine. So it's not as if people have propped it up and kept it there and they're creating a second Kaaba. It's just, it's obviously there for educational purposes. And look, all people can do it. Doesn't matter what group you're from, but it just seems to be a common reoccurrence with Umaris. And when it comes to Shia as well, some of us tend to do it, but not to the extent they do. And if say we present them with some facts, they'll look for the first sheikh that can dispute it, and then they'll pounce on that, even if they don't even look at their research. You know, and that's why we have this majority of Muslims that are just so backwards. I have to say, it's just the thinking is so backwards when it comes to this, when it comes to the ideology, when it comes to how to deal with other Muslims or even people in general. You know what I mean? It's really absurd. But when it comes to the Kaaba thing, the Kenyans that did it, to my knowledge, were Sunnis. And obviously, if they're in Palestine, they're predominantly going to be Sunni anyway. I don't know of any Shia Palestinians, so I think you guys need to sort your own boys out.
If there are,
no, there is. I think there is a. Sorry, bro. I think there is a small Shia community in Palestine. But having said that, yeah, I mean, if these are just petty things, you know, we could be petty about it. Talking about replicas, I believe there's even a hadith in Sunnah Abu Dawud that said that Aisha kept a doll, which was a replica horse of, I believe, Prophet
Solomon.
Yeah, and the narration is Sahih according to Albani as well. So, I mean, would we say that Aisha is doing shirk, or she's worshipping a horse? She's nonsensical.
I think they're implying that people actually prostrate to these mock Kaabas.
Yeah,
that's what's being implied.
No,
here.
but I think what we're saying is, if we take it to stupid, if we want to abuse, like mock someone, just to say, look what you're doing, we could say, oh, look at this Pegasus horse, is Umm al-Mu'mineen worshipping it. If we wouldn't do that, but we're just saying that how petty and stupid some arguments are.
Ridiculous.
They are.
Let's move on to the next question anyway.
So Danny, I'm going to jump this one because it's kind of connected to stupidity. And particularly, I think if we were looking at the dunce tree, this would be a particular high up level of stupidity. Do the Shia bury their dead in the the feet of the Shia when they're being buried? Is it in the direction of the Kaaba?
You know what? This is amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing you said this, right? Because I'm not going to mention any names. So I got into a discussion with a Sufi brother, and I'm not going to mention his name. And he refused to have this discussion with me. Out of respect, he goes, "Listen, because you're a Sayyid, I'm not going to have this discussion with you. Rather, I've been advised by my teacher that since he's a Sayyid, he should do it." So I was like, "Okay, fair enough." I was like, I mean, the discussion was between me and you anyway. Don't know why you're getting your teacher involved. But yeah, I have no problem speaking to your teacher. So this teacher, this sheikh of his Pir or Murshid or whatever he wants to call him, he must have been in his 60s, quite an old, elderly fella. And so I got to this discussion, and the first thing he asked me, he actually said to me, "You Shias, when you get buried, you have your feet facing towards the Kaaba." And I was shocked. This is supposed to be a guy who was supposed to be like a spiritual teacher of some kind, and he was really under the impression that Shias, they're buried basically in this particular manner. So Hassan Bahari, there are actually people out there who do believe Shias have their feet buried towards the Kaaba.
Yeah, I mean, I've never come across it myself. So I mean, obviously, you getting involved with being at different types of funerals, washed bodies, etc. I've never come across feet being buried in the direction of the Kaaba. It is a new one. Can
I just quickly screen share? Sorry, excuse me a second. Yeah, so I can show you the fatwas of our scholars as well on this issue. And this is from Sistani.org, and Ayatollah Sistani is considered to be one of the major scholars. That's from his official website, Sayyid Ali Hussein Sistani. And I can zoom up into his fatwa. Yeah, so if you look at his ruling number 622, he says the dead body should be laid in the ground on its side so that the face remains towards the Qibla. So yeah, again, we buried just like any other Muslims buried, and no, we don't keep our face facing towards the Kaaba. That's just a lie. Again, you know, it's typical of these people to lie about Shias, just so they can keep people away from the path of that who go for it.
Okay, brothers Daniel and Ryan. Daniel, have you heard this one before? Or is it a new one for you?
No, never heard of that. But you never stop learning, you know. If you spend some time on social media, you will almost daily get around new accusations. You will say, "Oh, really? We do that? Ah, interesting."
Yeah, exactly. Ryan, I don't think you would have heard this one either.
No, well, see, the thing for me is like, I'm a convert, and how it works for me is that I'll usually pick up things that I need to know when I need to know them. So when it comes to burying the dead, I've never had to attend a Muslim funeral, so I never even knew about which way someone is to be buried, and or if I've read, I've never really taken any notice of it. So when it was brought up, it's just like, okay, why? What's the point? Are we arguing for it or against it? I don't know what the point is here. And but yeah, I don't know if there has to be a basis for it. It can't just be you have to provide evidence for this, or it's just gossip and backbiting. And it's just like when they say that, is it Muharram? They allege that during Muharram we turn the lights off and do muta with each other.
No muta, zina. There's no
zina.
muta. Yeah.
Well,
The one better.
To my knowledge, they use the word muta.
I do that. I've heard a different one. Yeah, and they go that if any child is born from that is named Hussein. Yeah, I've heard this bullshit. Pardon my French, apologies.
You know, they will use this synonymous for each other. Like muta does mean sinner. If they accuse us of doing muta, I mean, some people, now that we're talking about it, some people are caught in an endless loop. Like if you have discussion with them, you do muta. They cannot say anything else. I say, well, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Yeah.
Okay. I think that concludes that one. I think let's go on to the next question. I really do like this one actually. It's a common favourite. Did Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, sorry, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, name his children Abu Bakr, Umar, Osman after the first three caliphs? Sayyid Ali Abab, do you want to answer that first?
I mean, I haven't come across any tradition where the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt have explicitly said that, look, you know, we name our children after these particular individuals. Yeah, these were names. I mean, even Abu Bakr, that wasn't even his proper name. That was his kunya. His name was Abu Quhafa. Abu Bakr meaning the father of Bakr, because he had a son called Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr. So meaning the father of Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr. So yeah, again, these were names that you could say were common at the time. Over the years, yes, Shias have stopped using them, unfortunately. But having said that, we do still have some Shias who do still keep some of these names. Even Aisha as well. You know, you have some Shia sisters who have the name Aisha, that later become Shia. And personally, I think it's a good thing they keep these names, and Shia should be encouraged to keep these names because, you know, we don't look at the name as such, rather we look at the actions of those people. You know, you had individuals like Saddam Hussein. Yeah, would we compare him to Imam Hussein alayhi salam? No, we wouldn't. You know, he was a tyrant. He oppressed the people. He killed the people. You know, one would, you know, some may argue, well, hold on a second. Why would you keep your name after a person who's oppressed you, or you know, who could have been held responsible for, you know, killing your spouse or your sister or your brother, etc., etc. You know, and to be fair, these are valid questions, but you know, just like today we name our children Hussein, you know, we wouldn't say that because of Saddam Hussein, the tyrant, we will stop keeping these names, you know. So yeah, again, there's nothing wrong with these names. We don't have any explicit traditions mentioning that they kept them off those particular individuals. And love is reciprocal. You know, let's just say hypothetically speaking, you know, they did keep the names after these people because they loved them. You know, we can also likewise argue, well, why didn't they keep the names after the Ahlul Bayt? You know, why did Umar keep the name Fatima or Hassan, Hussein amongst his children? Or why didn't Abu Bakr? So yeah, you know, it's not really a major issue.
Or their descendants.
Yeah, all the descendants. I mean, we do have traditions where the Imams alayhi salam have mentioned that, you know, if I don't want to misquote the words of the Imams, but I think he said if I had 1,000 sons, I would name them all Ali, I believe, or Hussein. So, you know, we could also likewise argue, well, how authentic are these reports? You know, we could say, well, show us a Sahih tradition where the Imam said, right, okay, I'm going to name my child Abu Bakr or Umar or Uthman or Aisha. Yeah, you know, these things may have been mentioned in the books of history, but, you know, again, we can also likewise criticize these traditions and we can ask them to prove how authentic they are.
Well, ultimately, the onus is on them to produce us. I mean, Al Sunnah books are not hujjah upon us. Point number one,
Yeah.
and point number two, you need to produce a Sahih, you know, narration from our books, where Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam has said, "I have named this child Abu Bakr because of the first Khalifa, or the second Khalifa, or the third Khalifa." Yeah, let's make it explicit. Don't you know? You shouldn't be trying to use guesswork. You know, if there was such bodyship.
I think some of our scholars, like I believe in the book Kitab al-Arshad by Sheikh Mufid, he does mention some of the children of the Imams and the names. But, you know, again, we had people like, you know, we had within Karbala, for example, when we look at the names of the martyrs of Karbala, you know, there were individuals called Yazid there, you know. So would we say that they kept these names despite the fact that, you know, or, you know, they identified themselves as Yazid when they were martyrs, you know, they weren't embarrassed by keeping these names. So, yeah, that's about it. I mean, there's nothing really else more we can add to that.
I mean, we could also say that any Sunni who names his child Abdul Rahman is praising Ibn Muljam, the killer of Imam Ali alayhi salam, by that. Or if they name their kids Abdullah, they will name them like that because of Abdullah ibn Sabah. That would be just like...
That's a good point, actually. That's true. That's true. That's a very good point. Brother Ryan?
Yeah, so firstly on this, as you guys have already stated, please just provide us evidence when you make such claims. I don't have any problem with one of the sons being named Uthman. I also believe that was the case due to one of the companions of Imam Ali alayhi salam being named Uthman. The other two names, well, Abu Bakr is a kunya, so it doesn't count. And I don't know where they got Umar from, but at the end of the day,
Umar ibn Abi Salama, sorry if I interrupt you, that's probably Umar ibn Abi Salama, who was a Shia companion also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what really matters is that all Muslims who understand, who have, you know, some knowledge in hadith, they would know that Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would store great importance in one's name and what you name your children. And what the name itself means. You know, essentially, we end up becoming what we are if we truly know what our name is. You know, Muhammad itself means one of praise. You know what I mean? And then Ali is exalted. You know, and these two names fit so well for these two individuals. Likewise, the name Aisha, the name itself actually doesn't mean, it doesn't have any negative or positive meaning. It's just, to my knowledge, it's life. From my understanding of the word. So I think what's great about it, even if the Imams did choose to give their kids such names, it shows that don't let other people necessarily affect your life and how you go about it. It's your own journey. So you get given a name that starts you off on your path, and then it's up to you whether you fulfill such a name that your parents gave you, and etc. You know what I mean? I don't care if there's a Shia called Aisha. We have a hadith that states if the name Al-Humayra is out of order, that's fine, because we have hadith to support that. But the name Aisha itself is actually, in my opinion, a very beautiful name. Some people that have had that name I don't necessarily think are beautiful, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. because it's just a name, and it doesn't. Like, I could have a son called John, right? And then my son, I could have a son called John, and then have another son called David, and then a guy called David kills my son, John. So what am I going to change my kid David's name? Is my kid David going to change his name? No, of course he's not. These are just common names that happen. You know, it's just an absurd argument, and I think it's quite silly. I think everyone should just cut the sectarian crap for a bit and just, you know, get back to the basics. And
I mean, you'd have to be. So Ryan, I was going to say you'd have to be pretty desperate to even run on such an argument. You know how absurd type of argument that you have to bring up with somebody. Oh look, well they kept the same names as them. You know.
Bro, that's the thing. Umaris are so, especially Salafis, obsessed with names. Obsessed with names. You find me one convert that reverted to Salafism who wasn't asked to change their name, or who even didn't. You know what I mean? I didn't change my name. I'm not going to change my name for anyone. My name, there's nothing wrong with my name. And people go, well, your name sounds like a Christian name. They all these, but you know what I mean? They don't think. You have to look into what the name actually means. Okay, so I think it's just quite absurd. I think they have this very literal perception of everything. You know what I mean? It's like, and very tribalistic. It's like, oh, your name sounds Christian, so you know
you must be one.
You must be one. And some Shia have this opinion as well. It's absurd. I had so many Muslims that come up to me and go, "What's your name, bro?" I'm like, "Oh, Ryan." I'm like, "Oh yeah, but what's your Muslim name?" I go, "What do you mean Muslim name?" And they're like, "Well, you took a name when you converted?" I go, "No, my Muslim name's Ryan." And they don't get it. I go, "I'm not Arab, bro. I don't have an Arab name." You know what I mean? It might be different for like Pakistanis and stuff like that because, you know, colonized by Arabs and all this kind of stuff. But I wasn't, so we didn't have that influence. And at the same time, when they say to me, it's like, "Oh, well, you know, all converts take names." I'm like, okay, you tell me now, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, was he an Arab? Was Nabi Musa alayhi salam, was he an Arab? Did they have Arab names? Do you think that the name that's literally in the Quran is what they were referred to by non-Arabs? Of course not. That's absurd. That's such an absurd thing. People just don't think. They don't think before they act. They don't think before they make accusations like the ones we've heard before, or any of the ones we've heard prior to the series, or any of the ones we're about to hear later in the video. They just don't think. I got nothing else to say on the matter. It's just
but I think it's quite funny, guys. They say that, you know, the importance of the name. There must be some love basis, etc. The importance. Isn't it funny that we often touch on this this thing that these guys, yeah, who like are quick to call us kafirs, etc. They're so shameless that they accuse the Prophet's parents of being astaghfirullah, idol worshippers. And what a beautiful name Abdullah is. And once I was asking a Salafi, I go, look, the Prophet, you know, obviously his father must have been a Muslim because Abdullah means a servant of God. And the response was, oh, well, it wasn't that God, it was an idol called Allah. Astaghfirullah. But you know, I'm just saying to you that, you know, it's on the one hand, names are a big issue for them and how important it is its correct usage. But look how they insult the parents of the Prophet. They have no shame.
The name Muhammad, you know, if you think about it, he was chosen by the Prophet's father himself, or was it his uncle? No, I believe it was the Prophet's father. So, you know, it goes back to the point, you know, Allah loved this name so much, he mentioned it in the Quran a few times.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I agree, that's a beautiful point you made about the Prophet's parents, you know. His name was Abdullah, and Abdullah means the servant of Allah. So, yeah. What? You're a servant of an idol god, the Quraysh. I mean, I wasn't even aware there was an idol god called Allah, of the idols, the pagans. I've heard this propaganda made by some Christian planets, you know, but I don't think there's any sound evidence from a prehistoric pagan god called Allah. And if there is, that's even more worrying.
Yeah, absolutely. But it certainly is. It's disturbing when you have this sort of concept. It shakes you. Think, what on earth they're talking about? the Prophet's parent, Abdullah. It's pretty clear cut. But anyway, such is life. Moving on, I suppose. How we're doing? Right. I think if we go to the next one, the Shias killed Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. And I'm not saying this an accusation. I want to make this clear. In case I misquoted, a video comes up saying, "Look at this Razi admitting it." It is alleged that the Shias killed Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and then they mourn him. This is quite an emotive topic. It's a particular favourite, particularly during the month of Muharram. It comes up as a favourite on pulpits and on forums. It's kind of the usual mockery that the Shias are traitors. They're the one who called Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam to Karbala, and they betrayed him, and essentially they're cursed, which is why they keep crying for him. Say that, Imam, do you want to open up on this point first?
I'd just like to ask where all our Sunni brothers were during the time, to be honest with you. If Shias were busy killing Imam Hussein, where were all our Sunni brothers?
Absolutely. Exactly. I mean, they were the majority, wasn't it? Where were they?
Yeah, where were they?
Exactly.
What
was going on?
Which school of thought did Yazid ascribe himself to?
Yeah.
If he did ascribe himself to Islam, let's.
Yeah, or even Yazid's army. What were they actually saying? They were defending the Khalifa of the time.
Yeah.
The individual that they deemed the rightful Khalifa.
Some of the generals and soldiers in Yazid's army were sons of some prominent Sahaba.
Yeah. So what religion were they following? Were they Majusi?
Were they Majusi? Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about people like Umar Saad bin Abi Waqqas' son, Umar.
Yeah, Umar
exactly. And there's other prominent Sahabas, there's other Sahaba, sons of Sahabas as well. I think
it makes you think what type of upbringing these Sahaba had as well for the children to produce individuals like that, right? I mean,
exactly.
To have a father and a son like Yazid,
absolutely.
Or to be like Saad ibn Abi Waqqas, but having said that, he had a son like Saad.
Absolutely. Well, it tells you something, though. I mean, about Saad bin Abi Waqqas, Ibn Hajar mentioned, doesn't he, that him and Ibn Umar, I think he mentions that both, that neither of them accepted the caliphate of Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi salatu wassalam, Ali ibn Abi Talib, or Imam Hassan, alayhi salam, but both accept the caliphate of Muawiyah and Yazid.
Yeah.
So, it does make you wonder what sort of individuals we're talking about. In terms of background, can I just say one thing? Because the word Shia is bandied about, and they said Shias, and you'll see them quoting texts saying, look, the Shias are involved in the killing of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I want to make this point very clear. People need to understand that the term Al-Sunnah wa Al-Jama'ah wasn't the common name for what today's Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah are. During the period of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, during the era of, I would say Safin in particular, that sort of period, there were essentially two groups which developed. There were a group called the Shia of Ali and the Shia of Usman. Okay? And the Shia of Ali were those. I'm just talking about a wider term, as a wide terminology. The Shia of Ali were those that essentially deemed Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam the rightful Khalifa. Okay? Obviously, our concept is from a religious perspective, that we believe Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is the first Khalifa, immediately after the Prophet. But in terms of a definition, there was not a general definition of who the Shias were. The Shia, essentially, at that time, any individual that aligned themselves to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam in 37 Hijri and fought alongside Amir al-Mu'mineen against Muawiyah, they fell within the definition of Shia, and Muawiyah's followers, they fell within the definition of the Shia of Usman. There were only two camps. So, whereas today there's very clear distinction between who the Shias are, who the Sunnis are, at that time, the term Shia was such a wide concept. It incorporated different people. As if they aligned themselves behind Amir al-Mu'mineen, they would fall within the definition of Shia. Shah Abdul Aziz Delvi, who wrote a much sort of appraised book against the Shia, Tuhfa Isnashari, he also said that the first Shia, his definition, were those that came along in 37 Hijri. They are the ones that aligned themselves with Amir al-Mu'mineen. They gave him bayah, and they fought his enemies. And he reviews, and he says these were the Muhajirin and the Ansar. So essentially, the companions were the first Shia. So the term that, if you talk about terminology for him, he viewed them as the original Shias. So that's a point that you need to understand, that by the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, it was a wide term. So if you talk about Shias killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam, you need to be very, very specific. And the onus is on...
Hassan,
Yeah.
Hassan, what I'm saying,
Yep, yep.
sorry. Plus Iraq was like a garrison town, right? And
It
we know
certainly
from,
was. It
yeah,
certainly was.
So we know from history, for example, Shibli Nomani in his book Al-Furuq, he
Yeah.
mentions that Umar was quite influential in...
So do you have that actual reference?
No, I don't. Well, no, I don't. But it's mentioned in Shibli Nomani's book Al-Furuq.
I have Shibli Nomani's book. Just like Blue Peter, here's one I prepared earlier. I've got it ready. Yeah, it is actually mentioned in Shibli Nomani's book, pages 94 to 95. It mentions that essentially this was the city that was created by Umar. It was a garrison town.
A Majusi state.
It was a Majusi state. The city was founded in 17 Hijri. And as Umar had expressly commanded, houses sufficient to lodge 40,000 persons were built. Arab tribes were allotted separate quarters under the supervision of Hayajib and Malik. Umar gave instructions with regard to the plan of the city as well as its construction. Now, do you honestly think that Umar ibn al-Khattab was building a Majusi state, a city, which was a pro-Alid city? I mean, this is used. Come on, please, let's use some common sense. If they're saying, oh well, it was a Shia, city, they were all the adherents of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar wouldn't be building a city which had his opponents there. And if the argument is presented, oh well, they suddenly grew, it seems odd that this garrison town, which had the adherents and supporters of the second caliph, suddenly became some hardcore Rafzi hotbed. It just doesn't make any sense. If I could just touch on one other point, please, brothers. I'm also holding up the history of Tabri, volume number 16. I'm just going to pull one reference out. There is an interesting reference here. This chapter deals with the basically following the killing of Usman. Volume number 16. It's called The Community Divided. It's the English translation, and it deals with the upheaval following Usman's death and the rebellion against Amir al-Mu'mineen, the first rebellion, the Battle of Jamal. And it's a really fascinating narration here. I'm just going to read a couple of lines for you. What it tells us is there was a meeting which actually took place in the house of the wife of the Prophet, Aisha. There was a meeting in which Talha and Zubair were there. And by the way, in terms of the chain, it's perfect. It's a Sahih chain. And it says that they went down, Talha Zubair, to Mecca 4 months after the killing of Usman. Ibn Umar, a very rich man, was there. And Jala bin Umayyah had arrived with him, a large sum of money and more than 400 camels. They gathered together in Aisha's house and exchanged opinions. Let's go to Ali and fight him. They said, we don't have the strength to fight the people of Medina. One of them replied, let us rather go enter Basra and Kufa. Talha has a following and popularity in Kufa, and Zubair has a popularity in Basra. Brothers and sisters, if the city of Kufa, which is what they're saying is where this treachery occurred, was a Rafzi hotbed, why on earth was Talha, was there a plan to send Talha to the city of Kufa if they were all followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen? I want people to use some logic here, and I've just quoted volume number 16, page 43. I'm happy to scan this across as well, and the chain is perfect. So, logically, why on earth would Talha go to Kufa if it was a Rafzi city with the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen? So that was the situation during the time of Usman, and basically, that's why when Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Battle of Jamal happened, these guys were taking over these Iraqi cities, which had the loyal support of Talha, Zubair, and obviously the wife of the Prophet was on their side. One last quote, I promise. I think this is relevant as well. It actually talks about when we got to the situation of, so obviously we've got Amir al-Mu'mineen in power. After Amir al-Mu'mineen and the situation, what happens when Muawiyah becomes Khalifa, he was ethnically cleansing cities which did have any Shia support anyway. And one of those cities, if it did have any adherents, which were hardcore Shia in terms of a religious perspective, they were wiped out. This is the history of Tabri, volume number 19. And I'm just going to quote one thing. Oh, apologies, I'm a little bit old school. I do tend to sort of go on and on, but I do kind of rely on books. Maybe it's the lawyer in me or something. I just want to just quote one point. This was the governor of Yazid appointed a governor called Ibn Ziyad as the governor of Kufa, and basically when he went out there, he tried to sort of instill fear into the Shia, and so this is just before Muslim bin Aqil alayhi salam is going into the city of Kufa, and so basically he issues this warning because this is what Ibn Zubayr says. Sorry about this. Ibn Zubayr says, and I'm quoting from page 38. He says, Ubaidullah, this Ibn Ziyad said, this is to Hani, one of the loyal supporters of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Didn't you know, Hani, when my father came to this land, so he's talking about his own father Ziyad, he was also a governor, he did not spare the life of any one of the Shia except for your father and Hujr, and you know what happened to Hujr. So essentially he's saying, during the Caliphate of Muawiyah, his father, Ziyad, had essentially ethnically cleansed the city of Kufa of its Shia inhabitants. And there was only two left, Hani and Hujr was slaughtered as well. So in this period of time, by the time of Muawiyah, the Shias had been massacred. The Shias is understood, the terminology of Shia, as we understand it, is those which deemed Amir al-Mu'mineen, the rightful Khalifa. How on earth did they suddenly have lots and lots of children within a period of a couple of years, so that they're a majority in Kufa? The fact of the matter is that is utterly nonsense to suggest that those in the city of Kufa were loyal Shia and the ancestors of the Shia today. These four gents that are sitting here, not at all. Brother Daniel.
Before we go to Daniel, I just want to mention a very interesting point as well, and that is when we look at the historical books that were written, the books of history, and when we come to learn the individuals who actually wrote letters to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, some of these individuals, they signed the names and they mention the names on these letters. Ibn Kathir, the famous scholar, in his famous book, history book, I believe it's in Badaya wal Nihaya, he mentions that amongst those who wrote the letter was an individual called, I think his name is Shibt bin Rabi, and we know that Shibt bin Rabi was also a narrator in the Sunni 6 books of Hadith. So these individuals who wrote letters, these are not people known to us, but they are identified within us, within the Sunni Brothers schools as narrators of tradition. And Shibt bin Rabi is mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, I think there's a hadith which talks about the tasbih of the Prophet. I believe he narrated that, or he plays in a chain in Sunnah Abu Dawud. And also, even with the aftermath of Karbala, and again, he was another individual who I believe wrote the last letter that was sent to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, inviting him into Kufa, was written by a guy called Sulaiman ibn Surad. And Sulaiman ibn Surad was a Sahabi. He was a companion of the Prophet, he was amongst those who led the Tawabun. The Tawabun were known as the repenters, and the head of the Tawabun was led by the Sahaba. And they call themselves the Tawabun, the repenters, because they felt, bad about what actually happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And this was, it was like a reactionary group that formed to seek justice to what happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So yeah, that's it. I don't know, Hassan Bahari, if any of the other brothers want to mention anything on this. You brothers, your microphone is on mute. Daniel?
I personally have nothing to add here. I mean, I think it's a stupid claim anyway. I mean, why should the Shias have killed Imam Hussein? We also shouldn't forget that the followers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Kufa were, of course, not allowed to help him in Karbala. Yeah, and well, yeah, I mean, I don't even know why we are arguing stuff like that. I mean, this is just foolish, stupid, idiotic stuff. I mean, the people ascribing themselves to Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, which would be the Shia in today's understanding, of course, not killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which is complete nonsense. And if we say, okay, in the historical concept, the word Shia meaning the party of the partisans of Imam Ali alayhi salam, I mean, that's another issue. We have also Sunni scholars like An-Nasai or Al-Hakim, who were labeled Shia by Dahabi. Dahabi said about Al-Hakim, he was a Shia, but he was not a Rafidi, and they should, first of all, come clear to themselves what they mean by Shia. Do they mean Shia? Do they mean Rafidi? Do they mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I just want to bring up something very interesting. I've got a reference now. I'm just going to share it on the screen. And it was about the individual called Sulaiman ibn Surad. And this is from the book by Ibn Abdul Bar. And he mentions the biography of Sulaiman ibn Surad. And he says, was a good, pious and religious man. During Jahiliyyah, his name was Nasir. The Prophet changed it to Sulaiman. He was amongst those that wrote to Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam and invited him to Kufa. When Hussein alayhi salam arrived, he abandoned him, and then Hussein was killed. Sulaiman ibn Surad Musayyib ibn Najis, that's his full name, and others expressed regret for having failed to aid Hussein. And this is from the famous book Al-Istiyab, which is a book of biography of the companions of the Prophet, the peace and blessing be upon him. There's the book there, Al-Istiyab, and the reference should appear on your screen. There, that's the biography, and it says Sulaiman ibn Surad. And again, just want to bring up another famous scholar known to the Salafi world, which goes by the name of Bilal Phillips. He has a famous book called Devil's Deception, which is actually Ibn Jawzi's book, which is another famous Salafi scholar. And he's written a commentary of that book, and he says, again, a group of Shii under Sulaiman ibn Surad armed themselves, vowing to fight to death against the Umayyads by doing penance at Hussein's grave for 4 years after the Battle of Karbala. They hoped to atone for the guilt for which they had brought upon themselves, having not fought for and died for Hussein ibn Ali. And this is in his book Devil's Deception by Bilal Phillips, page number 26. This is the front cover of the book. It's available in PDF online. But this individual Sulaiman ibn Surad, what do we call it? And there's a reference there. It says, which I mentioned, a group of Shia and the Sulaiman ibn Surad. So yeah, this individual was he was a notable Sahaba, and I believe there's a tradition actually narrated by him within the 6 books. I think he's narrated in Bukhari, I believe, or definitely within Muslim, I think. But yeah, he was a Sahabi who led the Dawabun, and again, unless you're going to accept that this companion of the Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him, was a Shia, I think, it'd be a big acceptance from that side in itself. So yeah, Hassan Bahari, do you want to come on, Mike?
Okay, hold on. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that, Sayyid Ali. I'm just gonna. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Hello.
Can hear you, say it. Can hear you.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I think that concludes. Actually, Ryan, you haven't made a point. Do you want to make any point on this?
No, I'm all good.
Okay. So if we move on to the next question, let me just quickly pull up the next question. Apologies. Bear with me a second. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about this. I'm just going to pull the next question up. Live TV, things happen. Sorry. Sorry to say that about this. I just lost the link for a sec.
That's no problem. I actually have the next question, Hassan Bahri. Did you want me to read it out? Because I've got it here.
Actually, I've got it here. I've got it here. Okay. This is a particular favourite. Imam, and it's funny because Brother Ahmed just mentioned it as well. The Shias believe that. Why is Imam Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam hiding in a cave?
No, that's not true. that's a lie made up by the enemies of Mahdi. They don't believe that. So there's nothing really more. There's nothing really more to answer that. It's just a lie. And again, what's wrong with hiding in caves anyway? Didn't the Prophet,
exactly.
the blessing be upon him, go in a cave with Abu Bakr?
And Ashabul Kaf, they were in
the cave
for hundreds of years.
So
yeah. Do we on narration saying that?
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to remember from memory. I think Ibn Khaldun or Ibn Khalikan, one of these scholars, mention it as without doing any research. And you know how it is. It's almost like Chinese whispers. One guy says it, and then everyone else just copies and pastes it, and just assumes it's the case. It's fact, and no one's actually checked the facts. I mean, I've been to
investigating. Right.
Exactly. And Alhamdulillah, I've been to Samarra recently. Sayyid Ali, you've been to Iraq as well. Did you identify a cave in Samarra where Imam Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam is hiding?
No, it's a lie.
Absolutely, and like you said, I mean, if the issue is the mockery about hiding, obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can hide his choice servants for a reason and for a purpose. And they can appear when it's the time.
Isn't there? I believe there was something on the one of our opponents' channels where it says that Imam al-Hujjah is in a cellar or something like that. Have you seen that? Because I think they quoted an Iranian sheikh or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. Have you guys seen anything like that? Or
I mean, there is a possibility. I mean, the father weakness and.
Said Ali?
I mean,
can you hear me?
Now we hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there is a possibility of that, but no, we don't believe the Imam is confined to any salah or anything like this. He is free, and he meets his, according to our traditions, he meets his close supporters. May Allah give us the opportunity to meet the Imam for a time. So, it's, there's nothing really concrete about that. I wouldn't even waste my time responding to such stupid allegations and claims. I mean, forget Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. In order to believe in the Mahdi itself, you need to believe in the first Imam. So once you've identified and recognized the identity of the first Imam, you can recognize and establish the proof and existence of the fourth Imam himself.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So you're not going to prove Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. First you go from Adam and make your way down at least to try to convince somebody that he is the last and final messenger of God. So yeah, I wouldn't even waste my time on this question.
I think people just don't understand how Ghaiba works, and I think we touched on it briefly in the Easter special we just did. But at the end of the day, you've got Imam al-Hujjah, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, Nabi Ilyasa, and Nabi Idris, and al-Khadir, all in Ghaiba according to our books. And it's very interesting that each of these individuals come from a major community in our history. So Nabi Isa, we could say, can represent the Christians. Then you've got he will be a hujjah upon the Christians. Imam al-Hujjah will be a hujjah on the Muslims. Idris, if the Sabians are still existing, then he'd be a hujjah on them, and Ilyas on the Jews. I think it's quite interesting that I think people just don't understand this concept, and then they pick and they as you guys have already said, that they just get these Chinese whispers and then just work off it to mock something because they don't understand it. You know what I mean? So I think once again, just do your research, kids, and then come back to us.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that, Brother Ryan. Daniel, do you want to add any point on further?
I'm good.
Okay.
I think it's quite
yeah,
funny
go on.
how much they used to mock Imam al-Zaman because they will be the first ones to heavily object that we do also, like some Shias do curse certain Sahaba, and they will heavily object that, but they will talk in the most disgusting terms about Imam al-Zaman Ajil Farajah. I mean, even if they don't believe in it, but they are so childish. Sometimes with like their mockings, it's not even funny. Like if it's not even on a schoolyard, I wouldn't even laugh about that.
But they
Yeah.
have, there's some Sunnis that actually do believe in him, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, Sufis do. Like the Sheikh Nazim, he was a recent Sufi scholar who believed that, but it's a minority actually.
Yeah. Okay. I think I think you touched on it anyway, Sayyid Ali. I think before they mocked this concept of suggesting that the Imam is a coward, astaghfirullah. I mean, they really need to look at definitions of who a coward is. And
of course, I mean, the thing is, let's not forget, this is the same prophet who they believe performed many miracles, and yeah, he couldn't defend himself. He couldn't defend himself despite having these miraculous powers or these mu'jiza. Go to a cave. In fact, it goes back to the point. They say, "Oh, well, how did the Imam of the Ahlul Bayt not defend themselves if they had these magic abilities?" But according to them, the Prophet was poisoned by a old Jewish woman. This old Jewish woman overpowered the Prophet, poisoned his food, and he was killed by it. But even though this is the same Prophet who they believe, who had abilities to perform these miracles. But again, we have no issues with accepting that narrative. But it just goes to show the double standards. They'll say, "Oh yeah, but you Shias, you believe the Imams have these abilities to do these miracles and these things, and yet they were taken, and dragged to the mosque and mistreated, etc., etc." But what can you say? People are idiots.
yeah, exactly.
Some people believe the Prophet ﷺ was bewitched by Jews.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not just the issue of bewitched. They believe the Prophet received satanic verses. A brother was mentioning this to me the other day. He goes to me, "Is it true that you Shias have this narrative in your book?" And I was like, "No, of course we don't. Because our books, they are clean and pure from such blasphemy and disrespect upon the Prophet and his holy household. Of course, we do have these concocted, fabricated traditions, which most of the time have been narrated by opponents, which unfortunately have found slipped away in our books. But no, we don't believe the Prophet was inspired by Satan. And by the way, this is something which the commentators of Hadith have mentioned it. In Bukhari, there's a tradition which talks about Surah Najm and what happened when it was revealed, and it talks about how the pagans prostrated. And even to me, I had this view that the Prophet received satanic verses, and I think Ibn Hajar Asqalani even mentioned the fact that this tradition has been mentioned in many chains, and I mean,
Didn't this tradition also lead Salman Rushdie to name his book after this, the Satanic?
Yeah, well, the Satanic verse is it's not really an academic such, but yeah, it did have something to do.
He built his whole narrative on
Absolutely.
Sunni Hadith, didn't he?
Yeah,
it was interesting that the Shia were the first one to actually attack Rushdie, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Rushdie actually did say that. He goes, "I did base it on your own books."
Yeah.
That's one of the things that he pointed out. He goes, "Nothing, even because the title does come from what's in your text." And I know people are saying in this day and age, I'm hearing certain people saying, "Oh, well," from other station channels saying, "Oh, this narration is weak," but that certainly isn't what some of your scholars have said. They certainly didn't.
Well, Yasser Ghazi, the famous Salafi Sheikh, there's a lecture of his on YouTube. You type it in, the Satanic verses Yasser Ghazi, and he talks about the three different opinions about what he says about this particular issue.
Right.
But yeah, you might get these people who try to cover up these facts and saying that didn't happen, but it's quite clear. And the scholars have spoken about it and they've given lectures about it. Some have outright denied it. Some have tried to justify it in some
Didn't
way.
Ibn Taymiyyah didn't have an issue with it, did he?
No, he didn't. No. In fact, I believe he held the opinion that when Iblis, when the devil inspired the prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him, when the revelation came to him, to Angel Jibreel, the devil whispered something in those words, and basically, when it reached the prophet, I believe it got abrogated or something, abrogated at some point. But yeah, I mean, it'd be silly to deny these things. And, you know, it goes back to the point, okay, let's just say hypothetically, these are lies and they're not true or whatever. Then, you know, what fatwa will you have about that person? Is it this kufr?
Yeah,
But you
absolutely.
know what, brothers? One interesting thing is that when we see those Islamophobic rallies where people unfortunately really mock Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the worst way, everything they say and everything they argue with is from the Sunni books. They will say your prophet was confused about his own revelation, so he wanted to kill himself. They say he was a sexually perverted man, na'udhu billah wa astaghfirullah, that he used to force himself upon women and used to touch them against their will, which is also found in Bukhari. They will say he was
and don't forget women touching him as well.
Women touching him and whatnot.
We're gonna do shows on this issue. And you know what, brother, Daniel, I'm glad you brought it up, because I remember I was reading somewhere where somebody said that, oh well, Shias, they took the tradition from our books, meaning the Sunni books of my brothers, and they made these chains up, but then what they did was they kept the content of the traditions. Are you serious?
Really?
You know?
Why is our narrative so different from them? I mean, look at the Shia narrative of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You will be like, wow, that was a respectable man. He was great. If you look at the Sunni perspective, you would say, oh, he was kind of confused. It was a strange guy.
It's interesting though. Sorry to say that. You know, if you look at any other leader, in history, you know, when you've got followers of a leader, they'll try and big that leader up, won't they? They'll try and say, "Oh, our leader is X, Y, Z. Look how great he was." They'll sort of, sing his praises. Even if you get kind of deviant types of leaders, such as the Qadianis or Nation of Islam, there'll be an attempt to portray them in the best possible way. But it really amazes me that when you get the Prophet of Islam, you know, the seal of all prophets, Rahmatullah Alameen, and the way that he's been presented by the majority sect is in such a low form. It doesn't, you know, that rather than sort of exalt him, his status, he's being brought down to some sort of low kind of, I don't even want to say, but the sort of depiction
it's like
is some sort of
everyone else's status is lifted up and his status is lifted down, you know. And we'll talk about these traditions as well, like, for example, where, you know, there was music being played and the Prophet was all sitting there, and all of a sudden when Umar came, you know, the Prophet got up and, like, when Shaitan runs from Umar and these type of things, you know, it's just extremely absurd. But they elevate everyone else's position, but then they bring the lower the stakes of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
I know. And inshallah ta'ala, we will do a comparison of the Shia position. You know, in terms of Fazail, even if you just open up
I think we should start from the very start, like I said, when it comes to the issue of revelation and how they believe the Prophet was going to contemplate suicide and, you know, all these things. I think it's important that we start from scratch.
You know, interesting say that. Apologies, brothers. You know, obviously I am much older than you guys, and Ryan, don't say anything. I had a point on that. But when I used to go to Hyde Park many years ago, I would say around about 15 odd years ago, I remember bumping into an ex-Salafi who'd converted to Christianity, and I was chatting to him and I said, "What's all this about?" Because I'd never in my life come across that. And he goes, "Listen," he goes, "have you not read your books?" Because obviously I didn't tell him I'm a Shia. And in that, and he said, "You know, you guys, your prophet didn't even know he's a prophet. He was going to kill himself." Because whereas obviously Hazrat Isa in your own book, the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, you know, appointed him as a prophet from the cradle. And he's testifying to his prophethood. That is Jesus Christ. And your prophet doesn't know he is one. You know, and stuff like that, you know, it makes you think, my word, you know, and his resentment to Islam was based along the depiction in non-Shia literature, which brought the Prophet down to such a level as an ordinary man that he thought, well, this cannot be correct. And it's really, really sad that when you have that type of scenario. Okay, should we go to the next question? Actually, Ryan, apologies, brother, I didn't ask you. Do you want to contribute anything to that point?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Right, okay, let's go to the next question. Did Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi... there's only two questions. I think we should knock them out of the way so we can conclude this. I can go to bed. Right, okay. Did Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam immediately pay allegiance to Abu Bakr?
No, he didn't.
Sayyid Ali, do you want to start on that point? Because I know there's been a bit of a hoo-ha of late on this one. A great deal of excitement to say, oh, look at this. Your Imam gave bayah. He was so happy that he wasn't even fully clothed when he ran out to give bayah.
Yeah, there's conflicting narrations about this. Okay, some say it was immediate. Some say that the Sahaba came and saw his commission to enter the house, etc., etc., and they kind of like forced entry to his house, or they made threats. So yeah, there's different reports. I remember somebody bringing it to my attention that a particular individual mentioned that the bayah was something immediate and it happened immediately. This is a lie. It wasn't immediate at all. In fact, if you give me a second, I'll quickly bring the hadith up on the screen just to make it clear that it wasn't immediate bayah at all. Whoever's saying that, they're lying to you, or they're telling you lies. This is from, say, Bukhari. Bring it up, sunnah.com website there, and it's mentioned in volume 4, book 53, hadith 325, and in the Arabic edition it's mentioned there. Okay, and hadith is in Bukhari, talks about what happened after the death of the Holy Prophet, and it says, narrated Aisha, after the death of Allah's Messenger, Fatima, the daughter of Allah's Messenger, asked Abu Bakr to give her a share of inheritance from what Allah's Messenger had left on faith, which Allah had given him. Abu Bakr said to her, Allah's Apostle said, our property will not be inherited. Whatever we leave is sadaqah, charity. Fatima, the daughter of Allah's Messenger, got angry and stopped speaking to Abu Bakr and continued assuming this attitude till she died. And I think our viewers should know that in Islam, it's not actually permitted to be angry with a Muslim for more than 3 days. But look how Sayyidah Fatima, the position she had, her attitude towards Abu Bakr, she kept this anger, yeah, until she died, as the hadith says very clearly. And Fatima remained alive for 6 months after the death of Allah's Messenger. She asked Abu Bakr for her inheritance from property of Allah's Messenger, which he left at Khaybar. And the narration continues, but I just want to bring it up. I actually got this. This is not the narration I was looking for. If you give me a second, I'll see if I can bring it up for you guys. I'll just quickly pass over to Daniel. But that was an important narration as well, by the way, which I just read for you guys. But if you just give me a second, I will bring up the other things for you.
Yeah, while you're away, what I think is very interesting is that they also have a version where Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam gave bayah twice, which would be complete nonsense, that he first ran out and gave bayah in a hurry, and then he waited 6 months and then gave it again. And during these 6 months, he suddenly changed his mind, and people became strange towards him, because we cannot reject this narration, obviously, because it's from Bukhari. If we do, then we have a problem with the whole manhaj of hadith, and so then there arises another conflict. So why did he hurry so much to give bayah? Then he say, oh no, wait a minute, oh, that maybe was a mistake, and then he distanced himself from that, and then he gave bayah again.
I found the tradition.
Yeah,
actually. Just give me a second. So it's similar to that previous hadith which I mentioned, and the hadith is here. It's from again sunnah.com, and the hadith is there. the bottom, volume 5, book 59, hadith 546. And it's a rather lengthy narration narrated by Aisha. It talks about the same thing about Bibi Fatima asking, the Prophet's daughter asking for her share of inheritance when the Holy Prophet passed away. Abu Bakr refused and claimed that the Prophet did not leave any inheritance. So she became angry with him, and she remained alive for 6 months, as it says here. So Abu Bakr refused to give anything out of that. She became angry with Abu Bakr and kept away from him and did not speak to him till she died. She remained alive for 6 months after the death of Allah's Prophet. When she died, her husband buried her at night without informing Abu Bakr. And he said the funeral prayer by himself. When Fatima was alive, the people used to respect Ali much. But after her death, Ali noticed a change in people's attitude towards him. So Ali sought reconciliation with Abu Bakr and gave him an oath of allegiance. Ali had not given the oath of allegiance during those months, i.e. the period between the Prophet's death and Fatima's death. And Ali sent someone to Abu Bakr saying, come to us, let nobody come with you, as he disliked that Umar should come. So basically, if you read the whole tradition, it talks about roughly how Imam Ali alayhi salam did not give his pledge of allegiance to Abu Bakr for all those months that Fatima alayha was alive. So anybody who claims that the bay'ah was something immediate, it's a lie, and it wasn't something which was done immediately.
It's also interesting that according to this narration, he disliked that Omar was there, and this.
Sorry, did you see my screen? Did it come
yeah,
up?
of course. Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Fine.
Sure, everything was visible. And as I said, it's strange that Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, objected Omar being there, because it seems like something happened with Omar. Seems like, I mean, if there was no reason that
obviously this is the Sunni narrative, right? And
yeah,
if you read the whole tradition, it does allude to the fact that eventually he kind of agreed to it, and then he was all happy about everything, and he wholeheartedly accepted this bay'ah. But if you read these traditions, you can see that there's obviously clearly ikhtilaf, the dispute. The Prophet's daughter is disputing with the Khalifa of the time. She doesn't believe what he's got to say. In fact, she dies angry with him, And then when she passes away, people's attitudes start changing towards Imam Ali alayhi salam. So again, he sought reconciliation, right? He tried to resolve the matter. And then at that point, according to this tradition, the Sunni narrative is that Imam Ali gave bay'ah 6 months after the Prophet passing away and after the death of Sayyidina Fatima. And that's it. I've got nothing else really to add. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dr. Daniel. Hassan Bahari, your phone's on mute, by the way.
Can I just add? I think the narration itself about Imam Ali giving bay'ah is quite embarrassing. I mean, the one which says that he was so excited on the night that Abu Bakr became Khalifa. So that evening, he came out and he said he wasn't even fully clothed. He ran out to give bay'ah, with happiness. And if you read that, you think, no man of any decency would sort of behave in such a manner that he comes out half naked just to give bay'ah. It doesn't make any sense. The narration itself is from.
It also shows that they concocted these narratives as well.
Yeah, of course.
In order to depict the fact that the pledge of allegiance was something immediate when it wasn't. So I don't know why you've got these people going around saying, "Oh no, the bay'ah was immediate." No, it wasn't immediate. It was done 6 months later. I need most authentic books.
And incidentally, say the narration is on the authority of Saf bin Umar, who's weak anyway. So his narration doesn't mean anything. If that's what you're going to bring out, that Amir al-Mu'minin gave bay'ah, you're relying on a weak tradition, number one. Number two, you yourselves have got, if you really want to go through your confused narrative, if he gave bay'ah on the same night, why give it again after 6 months? And in the middle of that, we've also, I think, I'm not sure, Zaid, if we mentioned it here, but certainly in other shows, we've mentioned it.
I think they tried to argue that what they tried to argue is, well, people saw this behavior that, apparently Imam Ali Islam was doing, or they had this feeling that there was some sort of friction between both parties, and why he gave the second bay'ah to make it clear that he had nothing, against Abu Bakr. But, again, if you put all these traditions together, you look at them, you've got this bay'ah going on immediately. You've got this bay'ah taking place after they visited his house. And, you've got this bay'ah, which we're just discussing now. And it's quite clear that the authors have mentioned that this was something which never occurred during the 6 months that Bibi Fatima Salam Alayha was alive. So, again,
which means that means that she died without accepting that individual as yeah, exactly. And they themselves have a narration in their big books, isn't it? That he who doesn't recognize or give the oath of allegiance to their Khalifa of the time, Imam of the time, they die the death of Jahiliyyah. So who was the Imam of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra Salamun Alayha at that time? Because if it was the first Khalifa, she died without giving bay'ah to him. Just a point to ponder. Brother Daniel?
I'm good.
Brian?
Yeah, the whole story kind of goes to the toilet once you look at Bibi Fatima's involvement in the narrative as well, and it's just man, you look at these ahadith that are attributed to Imam Ali and etc., and it just makes you cringe, especially when you look at all the other ones. You have to put all this information together and then assess it all. And what happens is a lot of people just cherry pick and then give you bits and pieces, and then they just hope that you don't essentially look further into it. That's just how it comes across. I had a brother, arguing with me, about Imamate and Khilafat, and how he said that it is our duty to give bay'ah to the Caliph of the time. And I said, what are you talking about? There was numerous Sahaba that didn't give bay'ah to Abu Bakr, and he just didn't comprehend it. And this was an older Pakistani man that lives in England, and he just couldn't comprehend the concept. And I'm like, where's the evidence for Bibi Fatima alayhi salam? Where's the authentic evidence for her giving bay'ah to Abu Bakr? And he's like, where's the evidence that she didn't? I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You got to have evidence for an action.
Well, she didn't consider him to be the Khulafa Rashidin, because if she did, for certain, she would have accepted his testimony on the issue of inheritance. That the prophets do not leave an inheritance. Rather, she kept the position where she became angry with him, and she died angry with him.
Yeah, exactly it. And it was a good point made up to just brought up before regarding the death of Jahiliyyah. Of course, the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she's going to give bay'ah to someone in her lifetime. And when she did it once before, and then when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, she had to do it again. Why would they lower her status like that and assume that she would, or that she would give it to someone who she didn't even talk to?
Actually, Ryan, should I tell you something interesting? They even fabricated traditions later to claim that the both of them went to visit Sayyidah Fatima Salam Alayha.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah.
And they sought permission to enter the house, and Imam Ali alayhi salam granted that permission, and they spoke to her till she became pleased with them, which goes to show that she wasn't pleased with them before. Otherwise, there would be no need for them to visit her. But having said that, as I mentioned, I've showed the tradition from Bukhari, which quite clearly explicitly states that, Abu Bakr wasn't even informed about her burial at night.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, they had to fabricate and concoct these traditions in order to, ultimately cover up the actions of these individuals, the Shaykhain, what Abu Bakr and Umar did.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, as they say, as they're saying in English, I mean, there's a term, isn't it? I've forgotten who actually said it first, but, the history of the victorious nations is written by the victorious nations, for the victorious nations. So essentially, obviously these narratives were concocted afterwards. And the crucial thing is there are narrations, they do bring out narrations about the first caliph actually leading the funeral prayers of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, Salamun Alaiha, and those are all weak. But they do, obviously, they have been produced, but none of them are the authentic. Your most authentic text is Sahih Bukhari, most authentic book after the Quran, and it tells us a very clear narrative that Sayyidah died angry with Abu Bakr, and she was buried at night without notifying him. So that kind of settles that matter.
What's your last question, Hassan Bari, and then inshallah we can conclude.
My last question. Actually, can I just make one point? It just made me think, and it brought kind of a tear to my eye as well. Recently, I attended a friend's funeral, his father's, and when you look at bereavement, how it affects somebody so badly, and you look at the example, everybody gets together and they send their condolences, and for them, they want you to feel part of that family, to say, we're really sorry your loss. And when you look at the way, say, that Fatima Salamun Alaiha was treated following the death of her father, you'd expect family, your family and friends to sort of give that sort of respect that she was due. And yet the narrative that you read in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba is within a few days, you have individuals outside her home threatening to set it on fire. And then you have her land confiscated. I mean, is that how you respect the daughter of the Prophet? She died within 6 months, angry.
Hassan Bari, what?
It really is awful.
Hassan Bari, I don't know about you, but like, for example, if you get somebody knocking at your door, even trying to collect money for some sort of charity or organization, you wouldn't send them away empty-handed. You would still give them something, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't send them away empty-handed, but it comes back to this point about the Prophet leaving an inheritance for his daughter. Did he or didn't he? Whatever the case, he could have given her something, right? He could have said, okay, fine, you won't get this, but I will give you this instead. But, you don't even see this, So it's just, what can you do? I think we'll do a whole series, actually, on, the Prophet's daughter, Fatima Sallallahu and, her rights and how her rights were served. Not only from her, but her other family members, including her husband, Imam Ali.
Okay.
I've got, before you go to your question, actually, somebody's been messaging me like crazy, and they're asking us, what is the Shia narrative on Umm Kulthum's marriage with Umar?
Okay.
I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Well, if you want to start first, then we can then respond together.
Well, someone's microphone is causing disturbance. I think it might be yours.
Is it?
Or Ryan's, maybe. Yeah, it's yours, Hassan Bari. It's yours.
What do I do? Just take off the phone?
I'd like to mute your microphone. Can you still hear us, Hassan Bari?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so the Shia narrative is, when it comes to the story of Umm Kulthum, I would recommend our viewers to ask our brothers to show us the full traditions. There's a difference of opinion which Umm Kulthum is. Some say it was the daughter of Abu Bakr. Some say it was the daughter of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Either way, if you look at the whole story, she was a very young girl. And if you look at the Sunni narrative, it's very embarrassing because it suggests that Umar was touching her. And it's just, the whole thing is just, again, it would require a separate show to really look at the traditions and see.
Well, some of the traditions say that Umar asked for her hand, and Amir
she goes, why are you marrying me to this older man or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then Amir al-Mu'minin sends her to him, and he then strokes her or something like that,
Yeah, that's the tradition.
She says something.
He touches her leg or something, or along the line.
Exactly, and then she says something, and the traditions aren't very nice. I've got a book actually upstairs.
In fact, the Shia narratives are even worse because
they don't help. No, they don't help. No, but it's interesting. So, if you let me just put one point on this, that there was a Pakistani scholar in the UK. He wrote a book on Sayyids, and he wrote it's called Hasab or Nasab. His name is Mufti Ghulam Rasul. He wrote a section on the marriage of Umm Kulthum, and it's interesting because he brings all the narratives out and said, look, if we accept this marriage, they're pretty filthy. some of the narrations about the way that Sayyidah Umm Kulthum alayhi salam is sent by her father to the house without being married, and he touches her leg, Umar, and some of the he basically quotes them, and they're quite disgusting. And then it's interesting what he does. After quoting all of it, he goes, A, we can't believe this, and B, obviously, he goes, the Ravzis must have made this all up just to defame Umar. In the same way that Caliphate was taken, they're just trying to portray that the daughter of Imam Ali was also seized in the same manner. So, I know he's trying to, there is no Shia Ibn Sabah type of influence in those narratives, but such is the embarrassment if you're going to use those narrations.
I think Hassan Bahari, we'll do a whole show on Umm Kulthum actually, and we look at the traditions.
But what about the Shia narrative? How does that help them?
No, the Shia narrative is even worse. The Shia narrative says that Umar raped her. It was by force. So even the Shia narrative is just so Shia narrative
doesn't help you.
No, it doesn't. No,
it says the marriage is by force. I think not rape. You're right. You're saying that maybe
it was forced upon her. But again, Hassan Bahari, some people might argue, well, why didn't Imam Ali salam do anything about it, right?
Yeah.
Somebody could argue, but then we could all likewise argue, well, why didn't Prophet Ibrahim protect his wife from being raped? Or on the other hand, if Hazrat Lut alayhi salam, he could offer his daughters to the Sodomites,
Yeah, he offered them. He said, marry my daughters.
Yeah. So why can't Imam Ali Islam, marry his daughters off to Umar? It's just, we could use these type of analogies to try to argue.
Also, their books say that the Prophet didn't have control, that his daughters were married to kuffar. Astaghfirullah. And and if you look at some of them, I think there's some narrations on that very issue that he tried to get them back and he couldn't. One of the daughters was married to Umar bin As, his sons. If we're going to use the same objection to Amir al-Mu'mineen, believe me, and you can apply that to the examples of other prophets as well, and particularly Lut alayhi salam is particularly, a pertinent one.
Some of the traditions actually suggest it was the daughter of Abu Bakr, by the way, but
I know that.
That's topic for another time.
Because obviously Abu Bakr's daughter's name was Kulthum, and she was actually brought up in the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, because Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam married the wife, wasn't it, of Abu Bakr when she was widowed, isn't it? Forgot the name. Awais, was it Amais? I forgot. Apologies, I can't remember the name. She was brought up in that house, and if anyone was in terms of married off, it was that daughter. So I mean, at the end of the day,
I think that's something we'll do a show on it. We'll bring up the Shia traditions and
and like I said, those narrations are not very nice. I personally, it's a bit like the concept of the topic of Tarif. I really didn't want to do it, but it's another topic. It doesn't help you guys if you really want to bring out the narratives. They don't.
Should we go to the last question?
I don't understand why you take kind of joy out of using these Shia traditions. They don't help you. In fact, the worst thing is they concur that all they do is present your second caliph as a bit of a pervert.
Yeah.
Do you really want to introduce him as that?
Yeah. Because we'll bring the Shia traditions up actually, so they can see. And we'll bring the Sunni ones up as well. Yeah.
And then they can decide themselves, what sort of nonsense. Is that Al-Istiyab and other narrations. Ryan, do you want to point anything out? Yeah.
No, I'm all good.
Daniel?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, I think, is that it? I think that
I think we got last question, Asabari. I think there was one about the imams controlling when they'll die, or they know when they die.
Do they know when they're going to die, and can they control death? Who's going to throw that one? Okay, so you want to go first?
If you give me a quick second. I haven't done any preparation to this hangout session today, so I'm kind of like bringing up all my references last minute.
I don't think any of us read. I quickly went and just brought my books downstairs and thought, okay,
I know. Okay, so I'm going to quickly screen share. And this hadith kind of sums up that question pretty well. Can the imams control when they die? And this is from the virtues of Musa, peace be upon him. And this is from the website sunnah.com. And this hadith is from Sahih Muslim, book 30, hadith 5,851. And that's the Arabic one there. sorry, there for the Arabic one. It's a rather lengthy narration, so if you just bear with me. Narrated by Abu Huraira, reported that the angel of death was sent to Musa alayhi salam to inform him of his Lord's summons. When he came, Musa boxed him, and his eye was knocked out. And the angel of death came back to his Lord and said, "You sent me to a servant who didn't want to die." Allah restored his eye to its proper place and revived his eyesight. And then he said, "Go back to him and tell him that if he wants life, he must place his hand on the back of an ox, and he would be granted as many years of life as the number of hairs covered by his hand, hairs in his hand." Here Moses said, "My Lord would happen." Then he said, "Then you must court death." He said, "Let it be now." He supplicated, and Allah. So basically, it's a long narration, but it goes to show you that basically the angel of death came to Musa alayhi salam, and Musa alayhi salam punched him, boxed him up. His eye came out, and Musa wasn't. He wasn't ready to. He wasn't ready to die. So as a result, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to grab the back of an ox, the hair from the back of the ox, and he lived according to how many years he had in his hands. So so if Musa alayhi salam had the ability to control the amount of years he was going to live, right? Likewise, what's the issue when it comes to the Imams alayhi salam having the ability to make that decision? Because I believe there's even Sunni hadith that says that the angel of death sought permission to enter the house of the Prophet, and it was granted permission, and the angel of death even asked permission to take the soul of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. I know some scholars try to weaken these traditions and say, "Oh, this is weak, we don't accept it." But on the other hand, there are scholars who accepted these narrations, and they even included them as the merits and virtues of the Prophet, and peace and blessings be upon him. So
yeah. So also, in unfortunately, I've only got the Urdu version, but I can get the Arabic version if any brothers or sisters want to see it. There's a narration, Ibn Kathir mentions it as well. It's been told in various traditions pertaining to the seizing of the soul of the prophets, that Israel used to enter into their houses and take their permission and would inform them about the instruction of Allah. And he seized their soul after getting indication from them. So that's and I think I'll have to look that up, but certainly that's the tradition in Al-Badaya. Ibn Kathir mentioned it. And Sayyid Ali, there's also a mention also in Sahih Muslim. There's 3 narrations which say that Aisha reported, and this is book 31, hadith number 5988. Unfortunately, I've got time to bring it up. Aisha reported, "I heard that never does a prophet die until he's given an option to opt life of this world or that of the hereafter." So he's given the option anyway in your books. Now, we believe that the Imams are the inheritors of the knowledge of the Prophet. So if the Prophets have that same knowledge and that same authority, what's the objection if we believe the same about our Imams? Because we believe them to be the true successors of the Prophet. Daniel?
No, I have nothing to add here.
Yeah? Nothing to add. Ryan?
After all these questions that we've heard from, and these are genuine questions that people just want to know. It just dumbfounds me. We've gone 6 episodes now, and you can find an answer for most, if not all, of these questions in Sunni books. You know what I mean? So, it just astounds me. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to grant someone the ability to, postpone their death or whatever, it's up to him. Who are we to say otherwise? And also, furthermore, you see that some scholars, Sunni scholars, have held this view and some haven't. And some have authenticated these hadiths and some haven't. So obviously it's not the basis for kufr. You know what I mean? So you can't do takfir. You can't do takfir on these beliefs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just don't understand why people even bring these things up.
Absurd objections.
Yeah, also
absurd objections.
Yeah, absolutely, they are subject. I mean, obviously, I mean, because our main opponents are at the moment who tend to be the most vociferous against us adherents of the Salafi sect, and Brother Ahmed, inshallah ta'ala, will deal with them. I just want to point out that not all of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah are the Salafi sect. Now, if you put, for example, there are books written by the Sufis who are Sunni who've written about the virtues of Ahlul Bayt and have mentioned that the Imams knew when they were going to die. For example, Abdurrahman Jami has written a book called Shu'ad al-Nubuwah, very famous in the Indian subcontinent, which has narrations. But obviously, if you guys are going to say, "Oh well, these are followers of shirk, etc.," you've attributed the same miracles to your own people. For example, Suyuti records in Tariq al-Khulafa, page 132, that Umar gave a khutbah and said, "I saw in a dream that if a cock pecked me once or twice, and I can only believe."
So I didn't know that. Was that what pecked him?
I saw in a dream, Umar gave a sermon, that a cock pecked me once or twice, and I can only believe that that means that my term has come to an end, essentially. That's in Tariq al-Khulafa, page 132. If he knows when he's going to die, and you don't have an issue with it, you suddenly get kind of all upset if we attribute the same to our moms. As I always say, you need to look at what's in your back garden before pointing at other people's. Is that it, brothers? Have we got anything else to add? I think, yeah.
No.
Well, I think that kind of concludes. We've had 6 sessions. What was going to be one has ended up at 6.
13 hours.
Exactly. So anyone who wants to learn about what the basics are and objections, they're more than welcome to look at these 13 hours and sit through them. Much better than box sets on Netflix, I tell you. And inshallah ta'ala, we will be doing other
What's wrong with
programs.
Netflix?
We will be doing other programs, dedicated to specific types of objections.
Hurry, is this the point where you're going to bring out the little candle and everyone's going to dance around now?
Oh yeah, we obviously going to switch the camera off and we're back to Majusi prayers again, aren't we? I've got a book ready for it. Don't worry, it's all set.
I'm going to get the fire ready, guys.
Exactly, it's all set.
But Ryan's going to pull out his little picture of his little Zoroastrian prophet.
Exactly. I light a fire. I won't set fire to the house, but I'll give it a go. But, I think that's about it, really. I think we've done all we needed to do on that topic area. It doesn't mean we're going anywhere. And obviously, if any kind of a new absurd objection does come along, or there is a demand, there's no reason why we can't reform and come back, and
like Raja, like the concept of Raja.
I was thinking more like the A-Team, but okay, Raja. That's my age there, I think, talking. But inshallah ta'ala, I think that concludes matters. Brothers, I don't think we need to add anything further. Thank you
Daniel,
very much.
You still there?
I'm here, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have to excuse myself. I've been a little bit quiet for the last few minutes, but my kids gave us 2 really tough nights, so I basically didn't sleep more than 2 or 3 hours the last 48 hours. So yeah, that's
no problem.
My batteries are a little down right now, but I think you did a great job explaining the questions, and yeah, it was a big pleasure for me too, of course, to be part of this series. And
inshallah, we will work on other programs as well. Thank you very much. I think that concludes it. There's not, Said Ali, you're not going to give me a kind of a Jerry Springer last minute thought, are you? Like last week about toilets.
I'll let Ryan say that. Let the white guy say that.
Ryan, have you got any words of wisdom before we leave?
No, it's not appropriate for the channel.
Okay, that's about it then. No, I think we've already in enough trouble now. Okay, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullah barakatuh.